welcome back to my channel Etipath Class 10. In this video lecture we will cover our next chapter of civics, gender, religion and caste. So let's begin the chapter. So what we will study in this chapter? Three kinds of social differences that can take form of social division and inequalities. Second, these are the social differences based on gender, religion and caste. In each case, we look at the nature of this division in India and how it gets expressed in politics. We will also check whether different expressions based on these differences are healthy or otherwise in a democracy. Gender and politics. Gender division. A form of hierarchical social division seen everywhere but is rarely recognized in the study of politics. The gender division tends to be understood as natural and unchangeable. However, it is not based on biology but on social expectations and stereotypes. Sex versus gender. Female, male. Gender is culturally defined. Sex is biological. Roles and responsibilities, caring, service, jobs, attributes, fragile or emotional, entitlements, inferior healthcare to men or financial dependence. Male culturally defined it as roles and responsibilities, construction, defense, attributes, risk-taking and aggression, entitlements, higher workforce participation, financial autonomy. Okay, then public-private division. Boys and girls are brought up to believe that the main responsibility of women is housework and bringing up children. This is reflected in a sexual division of labor in most families. Women do all work inside the home such as cooking, cleaning, washing, etc. and men do all the works outside the home. It is not that men cannot do housework. They simply think that it is for the women to attend to these things. Sexual division of labor, a system in which all work inside the family is either done by a woman of the family or organized by them through her domestic helpers. Work women do outside their homes. In villages, women fetch water, collect fuel and work in the fields. In urban areas, poor women works as domestic helper in the middle class homes, while middle class women works in offices. In fact, a majority of women do some sort of paid work in addition to domestic labor. But their work is not valued and does not get recognition. Men simply believe that the housework should be performed by women only. Men are ready to take up the household work only when they are paid for it. The majority of hotel tailors and cooks are men. Result of the division of labor. Although women constitute half of the humanity, their role in public life, especially politics, is minimal in most societies. Earlier, only men were allowed to participate in public affairs, vote, and contest for public offices. Gradually, the gender issues were raised into politics. Women in different parts of the world organized and agitated for equal rights. Next, feminist movement. There were agitations in different countries for the extension of voting rights to women. These agitations demanded enhancing the political and legal status of women and improving their educational and career options. More radical women's movement aimed at equality in personal and family life as well. These movements were called as feminist movements. Now, what are feminists? A human being who believe in equal rights and opportunities for women and men. The political expression of gender division and political mobilization helped to improve women's role in public life. We now find women working as scientists, doctors, engineers, etc., which were earlier not considered suitable for the women. Now, patriarchy. Literally, rule by father. This concept is used to refer to a system that values men more in giving them power over women. Scandinavian countries such as Sweden, Norway, and Finland, the participation of women in public life is very high. In our country, women still lag much behind men despite some improvement since independence. Ours is still a melodimated patriarchal society. Disadvantages: discrimination, oppression faced by women. First is the education. Literacy rate among women is only 54% compared with 76% among men. Similarly, a smaller proportion of girl students go for higher studies. When we look at school results, girls perform as well as boys, if no better in some places, but they drop out because parents prefer to spend their resources for their boys' education rather than spending equally on their sons and daughters. Second, women's work undervalued. No wonder the proportion of women among the highly paid and valued job is still very small. On an average, an Indian woman works 1 hour more than an average man every day. Yet much of her work is not paid and therefore often not valued. Low wages. The Equal Remuneration Act 1976 provides that equal wages should be paid to equal work. However, in almost all areas of work, from sports and cinema to factories and fields, women are paid less than men, even when they both do exactly the same work. Fourth, female feticide. In many parts of India, parents prefer to have sons and find ways to have the girl child aborted before she is born. Such sex-selective abortion led to a decline in child sex ratio in the country to merely 9:1:9. This map shows child sex ratio has fallen below 850 or even 800 in some states. These are reports of various kinds of harassment, exploitation, and violence against women. Urban areas have become particularly unsafe for women. They are not safe even within their home from beating, harassment, and other forms of domestic violence. Women's political representation. Issues related to women are not given adequate attention. This has led to many feminist and women's movements to the conclusion that unless women control power, their problem will not educate attention. One way to ensure this is to have more women as elected representatives. Proportion of women in legislature is low. Okay. In India, the percentage of elected women members in Lok Sabha touched 14.36% of the total strength for the first time in 2019. Their share in the state assembly is less than 5%. India is among the bottom group of nations in the world. It is behind the averages for several developing countries of Africa and Latin America. In the government, cabinets are largely all male, even when a woman becomes the chief minister or the prime minister. Fair proportion of women in elected bodies. One way to solve this problem is to make it legally binding to have a fair proportion of women in the elected bodies. This is what the Panchayati Raj has done in India. 1/3 of seats in local government bodies in panchayats and municipalities are now served for women. Now there are more than 10 lakh elected women representatives in rural and urban local bodies. Women's organizations and activists have been demanding a similar reservation of at least 1/3 of seats in Lok Sabha and state assemblies for women. A bill with this proposal has been pending before the parliament for more than a decade, but there is no consensus over this among all the political parties. The bill has not been passed. Gender division is an example that some form of social division needs to be expressed in politics. This also shows that disadvantaged groups do benefit when social division becomes a political issue. This cartoon offers an understanding of why the Women's Reservation Bill has not been passed in the Parliament. This same cartoon is there in your book, NCERT book. Okay, page number is 45. Just see over it. Okay. Now, religion, communalism, and politics. Division based on religious differences. This different division is not as universal as gender, but religious diversity is fairly widespread in world today. As we notice in case of Northern Ireland, even when most of the people belong to the same religion, there can be serious differences among about the way people practice their religion. Unlike gender differences, the religious differences are often expressed in the fields of politics. Let us consider a few instances that shows the relationship between religion and politics. Gandhi used to say religion can never be separated from politics. What he meant by religion was not on any particular religion like Hinduism or Islam or Christianity or whatever else, but moral values that inform all religion. He believed that politics must be guided by ethics drawn from religion. Protection of minorities. Human rights groups in our country have argued that most of the victims of communal rights in our country are people from religious minorities. They have demanded that the government take special steps to protect religious minorities. Demand for more equitable laws. Women's movement has argued that family laws of all religions discriminate against women. So they have demanded that government should change these laws to make them more equitable. Okay, so family laws, those laws that deal with family related matters such as marriage, divorce, adoption, inheritance, etc. In our country, different family laws apply to followers of different religions. All the instances involve relationship between religion and politics, but they do not seem to be very wrong or dangerous. Ideals and values drawn from different religions can and perhaps should play a role in politics. People should be able to express in politics their needs, interests, and demands. Those who hold political power should sometimes be able to regulate the practices of religion so as to prevent discrimination and oppression. These political acts are not wrong as long as they treat every religion equally. Communal politics. The problems begin when religion is seen as the basis of the nation. The problem becomes more acute when religion is expressed in politics in exclusive and partition terms, when one religion and its followers are pitted against another. This happens when beliefs of one religion are presented as superior to those to another. When the demands of one religion groups are formed in opposition to another, and when state power is used to establish domination of one religion group over the rest. Communal politics is based on the idea that religion is the principal basis of social community. Communalism involves thinking along the following lines. The followers of a particular religion must belong to one community. Their fundamental interests are same. Any differences that may have is irrelevant or trivial for community life. Communalism involves thinking along the following lines. It also follows that people who follow different religions cannot belong to the same social community. If the followers of different religions have same commonalities, these are superficial and immaterial. Their interests are bound to be different and involves a conflict. In its extreme form, communalism leads to the belief that people belonging to different religions cannot live as equal citizens within one nation. Either one of them has to dominate the rest or they have to form different nations. This belief is fundamentally flawed. People of same religion do not have the same interest and aspiration in every context. Everyone has several other roles, positions and identities. There are many voices inside every community. All these voices have the right to be heard. Therefore, any attempt to bring all followers of one religion together in context other than religion is bound to suppress many voices within that community. Now, various forms of communalism in politics. Most common form is the most common expression of communalism is everyday belief. These routines involve religious prejudice, stereotypes of religious communities, and belief in the superiority of one's religion over other. This is so common that we often fail to notice it, even when we believe it. Political dominance. A communal mind often leads to a quest for a political dominance of one's own religious community. For those belonging to a majority community, this takes the form of pejorative dominance. For those belonging to minority community, it can take a form of desire to form a separate political unit. Political mobilization on religious line. This involves the use of sacred symbols, religious leaders, emotional appeal, and plain fear in order to bring the followers of one religion together in the political arena. In electorate politics, this often involves special appeal to the interests or emotions of voters of one religion in preference to the other. Most ugly form. Sometimes communalism takes its most ugly form of communal violence, riots, and massacre. India and Pakistan suffered some of the worst communal riots at the time of partition. The past independence period has also been large-scale communal violence. Secular state. Communalism was and continues to be the major challenges to democracy in our country. The makers of a constitution were aware of this challenge. That is why they choose the model of secular state. Features of Indian secular state. There is no official religion for the Indian state, unlike the state of Buddhism in Sri Lanka, Islam in Pakistan, and that of Christianity in England. Our constitution does not give a special status to any religion. The Constitution provides all the individuals and communities freedom to profess, practices, and propagate any religion or not to follow any. Features of Indian secular state. The Constitution prohibits discrimination on ground of religion. States to intervene in the matter of religion. Secularism is not just an ideology of some parties or persons. This idea constitutes one of the foundation of our country. Communalism should not be seen as a threat to some people in India. It threatens the very idea of India. That is why communalism needs to be combated. A secular constitution like ours is necessary but not sufficient to combat communalism. Communal prejudices and propaganda needs to be countered in everyday life, and religion-based mobilization needs to be countered in arena of politics. This chair for the CM designate to prove his secular credentials. There will be plenty of rocking. Caste and politics. Caste inequalities. Unlike gender and religion, caste division is special to India. All societies have some kind of social inequalities and some form of division of labor. In most societies, occupations are passed on from one generation to another. Caste system is an extreme form of this. How is caste system in India different from that of other societies? In this system, hereditary occupational division was sanctioned by rituals. Members of the same caste group were supposed to form a social community that practiced at the same or similar occupation, married with the caste group, and did not eat with members from the other caste group. Caste system was based on exclusion of discrimination against the outcast group. They were subjected to be the inhuman practice of untouchability. Brahma and the origin of caste. Brahmins, priests and teachers. Kshatriyas, warriors and rulers. Vaishyas, farmers, traders and merchants. Shudras, laborers. Dalits, outcasts. Street sweepers, latrine and cleaners. Political leaders and social reformers like Jyotiba Phule Gandhiji, B.R. Ambedkar, and Periyar Ramaswamy Naikar advocated and worked for to establish a society in which caste inequalities are absent. Partially due to their efforts and partially due to other socio-economic changes, caste and caste system in modern India have undergone great changes. With economic development, large-scale urbanization, growth of literacy and education, occupation mobility, and weakening of the position of landlords in the villages, the land notions of caste hierarchy are broken down. Now, in urban areas, it does not matter much how is walking along next to us on a street or eating at the next table in a restaurant. The Constitution of India prohibited any caste-based discrimination and laid the foundation of policies to reverse the injustice of the caste system. Urbanization, shift of population from rural areas to urban areas. Occupation mobility, shift from one occupation to another, usually when a new generation takes up occupation other than those practiced by their ancestors. Caste hierarchy, a ladder-like formation in which all the caste groups are placed from the highest to lower caste. How caste completely disappeared from contemporary India? No, some of the older aspects of caste have persisted. Even now, most people marry within their own caste or tribe. Untouchability has not ended completely despite constitutional prohibition. Effects of centuries of advantages and disadvantages continue to be felt today. The caste groups that had access to education under the old system have done very well in acquiring modern education as well. These groups that did not have access to education or were prohibited from acquiring it has naturally lagged behind. That is why there is disproportionately large presence of upper caste among the urban middle classes in our country. Caste continues to be closely linked to economic status. Caste in politics, as in case of communalism, casteism is rooted in the belief that caste is the sole basis of social community. According to this way of thinking, people belong to the same caste, belong to a same national social community and have the same interests which they do not share with anyone from another caste. As we saw in the same case of communalism, such a belief is not borne out by our experience. Caste is one aspect of our experience, but it is not the only relevant or the most important aspect. Various forms of caste in politics. When parties choose candidates in elections, they keep in mind the caste composition of the electorate. The nomination candidates from different castes so as to muster necessary support to win elections. When government are formed, political parties usually take care that representatives of different castes and tribes find a place in it. Political parties and candidates in elections make appeals to caste sentiment to muster support. Some political parties are known to favor some caste and are seen as their representatives. Universal adult franchise and the principle of one person, one vote compelled political leaders to gear up the task of mobilizing and securing political support. It also brought new consciousness among the people of caste that were hitherto treated as inferior and low. The focus on caste in politics can sometimes give an impression that elections are all about and nothing else. That is far from true. No parliamentary constituency in country has a clear majority of one single caste. No party win the votes of all the voters of a caste or community. When people say that the caste is a vote bank of one party, it usually means that a large proportion of the voters from the caste vote for the party. Many political parties may put up candidates from the same caste if the caste is believed to dominate the electorate in a particular constituency. Clearly, while caste matters in electoral politics, so do many other factors. The voters have strongly attachment to political parties. People within the same caste or community have different interests. Rich and poor or men or women from the same caste often vote very differently. People assessment of the performance of government and the popularity rating of the leaders matter and are often decisive in elections. Politics and caste. We have seen so far looked at what caste does to politics, but it does not mean that there is only a one-way relation between caste and politics. Politics too influence the caste system and caste identities by bringing them to the political arena. It is not politics that gets considered in, it is the caste that get politicized. Various caste groups are required to enter into a coalition with other caste communities and thus enter into a dialogue and negotiation. Different role of caste in politics. Positive role. In some situation, expression of caste differences in political give many disadvantaged communities the space to demand their share of power. In this sense, caste politics has helped people from Dalits and OBCs caste to gain better access to decision making. Several politics and non-political organizations have been demanding and educated for an end to discrimination. Negative role. At the same time, exclusive attention to caste can produce negative results as well. As in caste of religion, politics based on caste identity alone is not very healthy in democracy. It can divert attention from other pressing issues like poverty, development, and corruption. In some cases, caste division leads to tension, conflict, and even violence. Now, these are the NCERT questions. Do it yourself. So, thank you for watching my video. Please share my videos, comment on my videos, and like my all videos. And please do not forget to subscribe my channel.